No? Oh, there we go. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Chazak u'baruch for being able to make it. This shiur is going to be L'ilui Nishmat Rabbi Chaim HaKohen, Rabbi Chaim ben Mordechai, Rabbi Mordechai HaKohen, Skali, and Rabbi Eliyahu Leon ben Shafia HaLevi. It should also be for all those who were kidnapped, all those in the Israeli Defense Force right now that are fighting, wherever they are. Kadosh Baruch Hu should give them a lot of success, help, and strengthen them to keep to keep fighting and to win Be'ezrat Hashem in the right time, Be'ezrat Hashem, and take out all those who are kidnapped, all those wherever they are. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should take them out from darkness to light, and from captivity to freedom, Be'ezrat Hashem. This week's Parasha, we're going to learn about Balak, Parashat Balak, on page 856 in the Art Scroll Chumashim. And Parashat Balak, except from the fact that it's my bar mitzvah parasha, yes, thank God, it's a very special parasha. Except from Noach, if you consider Noach not a Jew, and I think everyone considers Noach a non-Jew, right? Balak is the one who is really a non-Jew, who the Torah is called after him. We have Noach, we have Yitro, and we have Balak. And Balak is very surprising that the Torah we call a whole parasha based on Balak. But Balak means, the rabbis tell us that Balak comes from the word likek, lak. He was sucking on the blood of Am Yisrael. And we're going to see what does that mean, that he was sucking on the blood like a vampire. It's very interesting that the rabbis use this language, the sages use this statement to describe what Balak was doing, sucking on their blood. Now, as we know, blood is a life force of a person. So obviously, all the words of the rabbis, of our sages, are very cryptic. And our job is to go ahead and to be able to really understand what they're trying to tell us through those statements. But just before we're going to start, I'm going to give a short overview of this parasha. So basically, the last parasha finished with Am Yisrael camping right by the eastern bank of the Jordan River, facing Yericho. So this is 40 years after they left Mitzrayim. It says 40 years, this whole story transpires 40 years after they left Mitzrayim. Now Moab is a nation. Moab and Ammon are actually cousins. We know that Moab and Ammon are the two descendants of Lot. Lot, the nephew of Abraham, who with his daughters, whatever happened. And now there's these two nations called Moab and Ammon. Last week's parasha, they saw that Ammon was defeated. They saw that many started with Am Yisrael, Og Melech HaBashan, Sichon Melech Heshbon, all these kings, these great giants, they came and fought Am Yisrael, but they all lost. Am Yisrael defeats them, and Moab is very scared. They're very scared. So Balak doesn't know what to do. Instead of going the natural way, because he knows naturally he cannot defeat them. Look, they defeated Og. Og actually, people paid him. Og was a great giant. And people paid him and his nation money, taxes, for protection. He was the protector of the realm, basically. He wasn't the friendly with everyone. He came and he demanded money for his protection. But if you defeat Og, you defeat everyone. If you can't defeat Og, you can't defeat anyone. Once Am Yisrael defeated Og, they knew they're victorious. That's it. No one can win. Moab saw this, they got scared. Balak said, there's no way in the world I can defeat them. The only way, and he's smart for this, very mature way of thinking, the only way I can do this is with a power that is not natural. And who does he turn to? Bilaam. Bilaam Harasha, this Bilaam was, we're told that he only had one eye. The other eye was Satuma Ain. The other eye was blind. It says that you looked at him, he looks very scary. He looked like one of these old wizards. Now the thing is, Bilaam actually was there when Paro asked his council, what are we going to do with the Jews? If you remember, Paro said, the Jews are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. How are we going to solve the Jewish problem, as they say? Right? The Jewish problem already been for generations. It started from Paro, and it goes down the line up till today with Hamas trying to figure out how we're going to solve the Jewish problem. And Hitler and everyone else, Yimach Shemam V'zicham. Right? So Bilaam is very, very old. Probably 150 years already. This guy's alive. And he is known to be the greatest prophet of the Gentiles. Now, what we have to understand before we approach Balak is we have to see who is this Bilaam? Why is Bilaam? Why is Bilaam even a thing? Why is Bilaam even a thing? Says the Midrash straight away in the beginning of our Parasha. All the nations gathered to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're not being fair with us. Why? You gave Am Yisrael Moshe Rabbeinu. You gave them Moshe. Moshe, lo kam beYisrael ke Moshe, the greatest person who's ever lived, right? Most humble. But to us, you didn't give anyone. We didn't get any prophets. If we would have got someone like Moshe, as great as Moshe, we would have been tzaddikim, chasidim, lomdei Torah, everything. We would have been the best of the best. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, okay, I'll give you someone that is like Moshe. Like Moshe. Who is that? Bilaam. The end of the parasha says what? Lo kam beYisrael ke Moshe od. Right? We see that there is no such thing. No one ever stood like Moshe. Not the end of the parasha, the end of the Torah. No one ever stood like Moshe. Say the rabbis, what does it have to say? Lo kam beYisrael ke Moshe od. That no one stood in Israel ke Moshe. You should say Lo kam ke Moshe od. No one was like Moshe, and that's it. No one stood up and raised like Moshe. It says the sages, Lo kam beYisrael ke Moshe od. In Am Yisrael, for the rest of history, no one stood like Moshe. But in the nations of the world, someone stood. Who is that? Bilaam. Bilaam was as great as Moshe when it comes to prophecy. Almost right there. Which is scary. But this is why Bilaam. This is the introduction to this parasha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hatzur Tamim Po'alo El Emunah Ve'en Ave Tzaddik Ve'yasharu. This is a pasuk that says HaKadosh Baruch Hu is completely just with everyone. He's not going to go and give you the powers that he has for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's service. Everyone, he wants it to be a fair game. Everyone gets it fair. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes sure that the game is even. He gives the Jews Moshe, and he gives the Goyim Bilaam. Now ask me a question. Is it fair now? Are we fair? Sounds like we're fair, right? Oh, you read about Bilaam, and you see that this guy, as we're going to learn, has such a big lust for money. He has such a big lust for honor, and unfortunately, he has such a big lust for donkeys as well. We see this in this week's parasha. This man was completely a perverted human being. All he wanted was honor. All he wanted was money. All he wanted was Rachmana litzlan, all kind of lusts and everything. How can we even say that this is a fair game? Moshe, look at the difference between Moshe and Bilaam. Moshe was a holy person. From the time he's 20 and he grows up in the king's palace, he's already such a tzaddik. He goes out and he sees the Jews are getting hit by the Egyptians. He has a heart. This Bilaam doesn't even seem like he cares at all. In the small council of Paro, of the three men, who's the one who said to throw all the babies to the Nile River? It was Bilaam. Eov was there. Yitro was there. Eov was quiet. So he got his afflictions. Yitro fled. He got to be the father-in-law of the biggest person in history, the biggest Jew. Bilaam said what he said. He's such a rasha, he has no mercy. How can we compare apples to oranges over here? How is this fair? This is a question that's been asked a lot. Whenever we bring up this midrash, and this is the first midrash we're going to tackle over here. But I have two answers from the great Hasidim. The first one, his name was Rav Bunim of Parshischa. He's a big tzaddik. They used to call him the Yehudi HaKadosh, the holy Jew. The holy Jew. This man was a holy Jew. One time, he was traveling around giving shiurim, and he felt a bit sick. So his students straight away rushed over to him and they said, well, how can we help? He says, get me a doctor. They try to find a doctor, everything. They brought him a doctor. This doctor was Shamam, what do they call it? Shaman. He wasn't a regular doctor. He was a witch doctor. He does alternative medicine. He does all kind of things, and apparently in the towns they talk about him everywhere in Poland and Europe. They say he's a big guy. Rav Bunam said to his students, no. If I wanted to go with supernatural powers, I would just go to the tzaddikim of the generations, to the holy Jews of the generation, and ask them for a bracha. I wanted to use the natural means first. As the Torah says, v'rapo yerapeh. The Torah gave permission to a doctor to heal. And after there's a doctor, it doesn't work, you go to the big mekubalim, the tzaddikim. Says Rav Bunam, same thing with Bilaam and the nations. You guys, Balak, you knew naturally you cannot defeat Am Yisrael. So what are you going to do? Supernatural powers. Instead of bowing down to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, instead of making peace with Am Yisrael, you're going to supernatural powers. And who is your supernatural power in the world, in this world? Who did you guys choose to put upon yourself? Bilaam. Who do you guys look up to? It's Bilaam. Bilaam was so respected. It says that all the kings of the world, maritzini gotein lefanav. It's Rashi in this week's Parasha. All the kings of the world at that time would bring all their biggest questions to Bilaam. He was frequented by the biggest lords of the land. They adored him. They admired him. They admired such a chamo, we could say. This is where the fairness is at. You have Bilaam. You have a test. Are you going to go with that power? Or are you going to look at someone like Moshe? And instead of looking, there were great prophets also from the nations of the world. Like the grandson of, like the son of Esav, Eliphaz, he was known to be a great prophet. Eov was known to be a prophet. He was speaking to God. But instead, everyone respected who? Bilaam. That's one answer. The second answer, and this one is a fascinating answer. Second answer comes from the Sefat Emet, the Rebbe of the Hasidic movement of Ger. Ger is a city in, I think, in Poland. In Russia? It was Russia? The Sfat Emet says something fascinating. What does a Navi mean? You have to first understand, what does a Navi mean? Navi, now this is, a lot of people don't know this. Even yeshiva guys and rabbis don't know this. So you guys get to know this now. Navi comes from the word niv sefatayim. Niv, dialogue, dialect. Navi means he is someone of dialect. Dialect between who? Between him and God. Now many of us think that that's all the purpose of the Navi. I mean, like, look at the Pope. The Pope, why is it called the Pope? Anyone knows? He's a pipe. He's a pipe between him and God. That's as a conduit. Pope, pipe. I mean, Pope really is from Papa, but you know, but he's a pipe. He's a plastic pipe. You know, probably with some sewage over there in that pipe. But you know, this is the Pope. The Havdil Elef Avdalot. A Navi, we look as someone who has a dialect with God, who speaks with God. But says the Sfat Emet, it doesn't go just one way. Navi, he is the Niv, the dialect of the nation. The Navi emerges from a nation. It's not that a nation comes from a Navi. You have a nation, and from that nation comes someone who is holy enough to speak to God. He is the senator, the ambassador of the nation to God. If the Navi is a tzaddik, that means the nation is a good nation. If the Navi is a Rasha, then that means that the nations follow the same suit, and he's the best product that they can offer. Bilaam was such a disgusting, vile human being, but even then, he's the Navi of the nations. It's not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose him out of everyone else. He became the Navi because of his status compared to all his peers. The nations of the world That was their best product to offer as a Navi. And that's where the Nevu'ah, the prophecy, lied upon. That's who? It was Bilaam. If your nations, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, your guys are thinking wrong. You guys think that the Navi makes the nation. It's the nation that makes the Navi. Don't come and complain to me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, if we had Moshe, I gave you Nevuah. And the best product that you guys were able to bring, the Navi that was able to come and capture that reward, that power of Nevuah is who? Bilaam. Say no more, say no more. You guys deserve everything. But you guys are losing out on it. You want me to be fair? I'll be fair. But you guys also play the same game. It's a beautiful, beautiful message from the Sifat Emet that teaches us the power of a Navi. It's not just a dialect. It's not just, he's speaking he is the example of the nation. One last thing I'll say, I want to add to this question. Again, we're asking the difference between Bilaam and Moshe. I want to share with you an amazing story that became a big dispute between the rabbis of Europe and the Middle East, if it's true or not true. One of the rabbis raised this up, and he says that he has this in tradition. Now, what's the story? There used to be an Arabic king back in the days when Am Yisrael left Egypt. And everyone heard about Moshe. I mean, after Egypt, after the sea was split, everyone heard about this great man called Moshe. And this king had a power. What was his power? He was able to read your face. He was able to see from your face who you are exactly. The king wanted to see, who is this Moshe? Is it really just bogus and his nation is just, puffing him up, making his image look good? Or is he actually a tzaddik? So he sent one of his best artists to the camp of Israel, wherever they were camped in the desert of Sinai. And he went over there and he told them, draw a picture of Moshe. But I want you to draw him perfectly because I want to read his face. The artist went and he saw Moshe. Took him a while. Got a nice picture, nice art. Drew him very nicely. Brought him back to the king. The king sees the image of Moshe and he says, this guy is always angry. This guy wants only money. This guy has so much lust. This guy wants honor beyond compare. It's either it's all bogus or my artist is just a bad artist. But this king was fair and he says, you know what? I don't want to kill the artist for the mistakes he did. Let's see. Maybe we can see. So he went and he visited the camp of Israel. They accepted him and he went into the camps deep and deep and he says, I want to meet Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, wait, Moshe is teaching the nation. Just wait a little bit, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. He says, okay, now you can come in. He walks to the tent where Moshe is. Moshe just finished the Shiur. He sees all the students walking out. Aaron is walking. Everyone's walking. And he goes into the tent. He sees Moshe in meditation. He sits in front. Waits for Moshe to wake up from his meditation. Moshe wakes up. He sees the king. The king introduces himself and he tells him the story. Moshe starts laughing. Moshe says, you're right. You're right. I am all of that. I mean, especially the angry part. I'm all that. But what happened was, you are able to read my face, how I was born. The challenges God brought me to the world with. Anger, lust, money, this, blah, blah. What I did was I worked on myself. And I made it my second nature. I made what I want to become, I made that my second nature. I made it my true nature. And I completely changed 360. It took a while. It was hard. But I completely changed. Whatever you see in my face is how I was born. These are the challenges I have. But I worked hard. With a lot of sweat and hard work, I was able to turn into this man called Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, I'm sure you guys can already tell why some people think it's fake, some people think it's not a real story, but some rabbis say it's a true story, and you're right, who cares? it's a beautiful message, and it's so true. A lot of us, we come into the world and we're dealt with cards that we never had anything to do with. And the question is, how do we view that? Do we go ahead and we give up? Or do we say, no, there's still hope, and we fight against it? And that's what Moshe did. Bilaam was also kind of a reflection of the nations. The nation, remember, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to bring the Torah to all the nations, what happened? He said, let's bring it to Edom. What did the Malach of Edom say, which was representing the entire nation? No, we want to kill. We want to kill. He wanted to bring it to Ishmael. The same thing. Each nation had a different reason. No, our forefather, this. What's the story about? What's this midrash about? About the Kadosh Baruch Hu giving the Torah, and the Malach is saying, no, we have a problem with worshipping idols. We have a problem with this. It's not that they had a problem. It's that they grew up in this mindset, with a narrow mindset. I can't leave now. For what? Now remember, even Am Yisrael, the Gemara says that they're like dogs. If not for the Torah, Am Yisrael are so fierce. I mean, look at Jews. Jews are so fierce, so chutzpahdik, you know? And still, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah because we were willing to work on ourselves. Bilaam and the nations were people who were dealt cards. Yes, you guys were dealt cards. What are you going to do with those cards? Are you going to grow? Especially Bilaam, who has the Nevuah. And this is the message. Before we start Balak, before we start reading about Bilaam, we have to know who Bilaam is. Where does he come from, and what's his purpose? This is his purpose. We're going to continue a little bit further to something fascinating about the Parasha. If you look on chapter 22, Pasuk 18. So what happens is that Balak starts sending a lot of his advisors to Bilaam. He tells Bilaam, come, I have this nation of Israel, come curse them for me. Come erase them from the memory of the histories. Bilaam gets the first people and he says, no, just stay by, sleep over here. Let me ask God. What does God tell him to do? God tells him, don't go with them. Okay. So he tells him, I can't come. He sent another delegation, even more honorable. And in Pasuk Yudchet, the 18th Pasuk, Bilaam says something fascinating. Vayan Bilaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, Imiten li Balak melo veito kesef v'zahav. Even if Balak gives me, what does it say? It says house full of silver and gold, right? Lo uchal la'avor et pi Adonai Elohai la'asot ketana u'gedola. I cannot transgress the words of my God to do anything small or great. What a tzaddik. What a tzaddik, right? I mean, he says, even if you give me all the gold, all the treasury house of Balak, I'm not going to do it. Why? Because God said no, then I do no. I mean, this is one of the places that we can actually say that even the goyim have some sense and they actually have respect to God. Am I right? No. sorry to do this, but no. The sages tell us from these words, we actually see the opposite. From here, the sages decide to learn that Bilaam had a lot of lust for money, was running after money, was greedy. How do you see it from this? I want to tell you a story that's brought down by Rav Nissim Gaon. Rav Nissim Gaon was someone who lived in, I would say, the period of after the Bet HaMikdash. During the Bet HaMikdash, the second temple, we had the people called, these great sages called Tanaim. It's a little bit of Jewish history. Tanaim were the people like Hillel, Shammai, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. These are called the Tanaim. They spanned for a couple generations, but they were in the second temple. After the Tanaim actually we have the Mishnah. The Mishnah comes from the Tanaim. After the Tanaim came the Amoraim, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Bar Chana, Rav Papa. Resh Lakish, all these rabbis who wrote the Talmud, the Gemara. That's Amoraim. After the Amoraim was this short period of time of like 100 to 150 years, and even less, called the Savoraim, which were very scary holy people that we actually have accounts of them, of what they did and their deeds, but very like, not very quiet time in history. No. This is actually before even Europe was a thing. This is all in Iraq and, this is all in the Middle East still. After that came the Geonim, again, all in the Middle East. The big two yeshivot were in Iraq. Pumbedita and Sura, there were big two yeshivot, Naharda. These are the two cities that had the biggest yeshivot in the world at the time. One of those yeshivot, Rav Nissim Gaon, was a rabbi. And I would say around, we're in year 2024, he was around 950 to 1,000. Okay? Yeah. No. After. Meaning we're right now counting 2024, right? So 900. This is all from. We say common era. Yeah. Almost there, exactly. Almost there. Rashi was actually, just to get you guys in the game over here. Rashi was 1100s. Rashi was in the 1100s. So is the Rambam. Was around the 1100s. Rambam died at 1210 or something, right? So Geonim were basically the big period of time after the Gemara time. These were great men, Rav Yehudai Gaon, Rav Nissim Gaon, holy men that wrote explanations for the Gemara. Again, the Gemara is explanation for the Mishnah. Mishnah is explanation for the Torah. Midrash, Mishnah are all the explanations of the Torah. Gemara is explanation of that, and the Gaonim wrote their own commentaries on the Gemara. Rav Nissim Gaon was one of these luminaries, and he actually in his time fought the Karaim. Karaim were the people, they called themselves Karaim, and we still have them in Israel today. Karaim are people who only believe in the verses. They don't believe in the sages, in the tradition, in the oral law, only in the written law. He was the one who fought with them tooth and nail, and he wrote a book called Emunah and Deot, Emunot Vedeot, fascinating book all about proving the oral law and disproving just believing in the written law. This is Rav Nissim Gaon. So, Rav Nissim Gaon has a bunch of traditions, and one of those traditions is a story from King Solomon that we don't find anywhere. But he says this is a tradition that he has. He says, once upon a time, there were 3 businessmen who entered the chambers of King Solomon while he was holding court. Shlomo HaMelech was the wisest of all men, and we even see this in the prophets, that he used to hold court, and everyone would come for a certain period of time, would ask him all the questions from A to Z. Even the question of which one is a real flower, which one is not a real flower. With the whole question of, you got anyone heard of the queen of the? It's a fascinating story. But you probably heard of the twins, the 2 moms that came and they had the kid, right, and they were wondering which one it belonged to. So the 3 businessmen walked in, and they have a story. They said like this: we were going down to Africa to do business. We're all 3 businessmen, we're all Jews, we keep Shabbat, and on Friday, before Shabbat comes in, we have a big chest of money with us that we came to invest, and it's shared by all of us. Now we're sleeping at this inn, and we don't trust the innkeepers, we don't trust the people around, so we went Thursday night and we hid the chest in the ground, somewhere no one could see. We did this somewhere far, no one could see. There's no way anyone saw. After Shabbat, Motzei Shabbat, we go back there to make sure everything is okay, and it's gone. Each one of us suspects the other. I suspect him, he suspects me. We don't know. Help us solve this problem. Here's this. How are you supposed to solve this? Right? What? No, but maybe it was the goyim, right? But these are three Jews, and each one suspects each other. They said there's no way the goyim heard this, so it must have been someone from the inside.
Nobody else knew about it.
Right. So what are you going to do now? Shlomo Melech says, okay, no problem. He did something very, very, very wise, and that is, come tomorrow. And this is the wisest thing you can do whenever you get a question. Let me think about it. Come tomorrow. Next day they come into the court, and before they even get to talk, Shlomo Melech says, I have a question to you guys. I have a dilemma myself. Help me solve this dilemma. We'll get back to your dilemma. I say, okay, of course. He says, basically, today in court I heard the following story. There was a boy and a girl, when they were young, 15 years old. They vowed that they will never ever marry anyone else, only each other. They grew up, and as they grew up, they drifted apart little by little. And the girl met a boy who she really likes. She fell in love, and she wanted to get married with him. A different boy. 3 days before the chuppah is supposed to happen, she remembers about her vows that she made when she was 15. She goes frantically to the groom, and she says, listen, I made this vow. I don't know what to do. I don't want to walk into this wedding having this vow on my back. I don't know what to do. The groom looks at her and he says, no problem. He goes to his deposit box, safe deposit box. He takes out a whole load of cash, and he says, do you know where he lives? In that village. Okay, we're going to go travel to the village, and we're going to give him money. We're going to ask him to revoke his vows. Okay? They go on the way. They get to the village. They knock on his door. He opens the door. He's surprised. He sees the girl that he was friends with, and they tell him the whole story. The boy showed a lot of court. He said, not just that I'm going to revoke the vows. Don't even give me the money. Save it for yourself. Down payment on a house. Be'ezrat Hashem, besiman tov, u'mazal tov. All good. It's yours. They were amazed. Beautiful. Right? Tzaddik. They left. And they went back. 2 days they're getting married. On the way back, a robber stopped the cart. And he told them, give me all your money. The bride started crying. Yes, why are you crying? She told him the whole story. She said, this boy, who actually does have claim to the money, still refused to take the money. And you that don't have any claim, you come and take from us the money? How low can you stoop? How low can you go down to? The robber actually, fortunately, he actually felt bad. And he said, you know what? Take the money, go. B'siman tov u'mazal tov. And they left. Shlomo HaMelech looks at the three businessmen and he says, listen, my dilemma is, who is the most praiseworthy in this story? The first businessman says, the chatan, the groom. What do you mean? The groom didn't have to do any of this. He could have said vows, blows, and not just that he cared about the vow. He took his own cash to pay the guy. He was willing to give him money. What a tzaddik. The second businessman said, no, it's the boy who never accepted the money. He's a tzaddik. He had all the right to take the money and he didn't take it. Third businessman said, it's the robber. The robber is such a tzaddik. He didn't take the money in the end. He had all. Shlomo HaMelech stood up. You're the thief. You're the one who took the money. Admit it now before more shame is going to follow. Just admit it. And the guy fell. He started crying. He said, listen, I'm in a bad financial situation. I'm sorry. They asked Shlomo HaMelech after this, how did you know? He said, the guy had admiration to a guy not taking money that doesn't even belong to him to begin with. The fact that he has even a little bit of admiration to such a guy shows that he has something in common with this guy. And he appreciated the fact that he didn't take the money. That showed me that this guy he's for sure the guy. Fascinating. Same thing with Bilaam. Bilaam, they come to Bilaam, they never once mention money. Nowhere in the Torah does it say that they mention money. Who mentions money? Bilaam. First thing he says, the first time he tells them, even if Balak gives me all of his house, all of the money in the world, all of the gold in the world. Who asked you about money? Who told you about gold and silver? Who talked to you about that? Maybe we'll write you a check, a nice check. That's it. Who said? From here, you learn a big lesson. From here, you learn a huge, tremendous lesson. Whenever you admire something, whatever in life you look up to, you have a lot of desire for, that's who you are. And your words, you can always hear it from your words. When you meet a person and you hear that all he's talking about is this business thing and this, that, and the money and this and the stock market and this is all he can talk about. Shabbat table and shul and this. You see that his mind is there. He admires money. Avodah zarah. This is type of avodah zarah to admire money. I mean, it's ridiculous. Some people, you hear how they talk about money, right? They talk about it. You have to know how money works, and you have to know how money talks, and you have to appreciate. I'm sure you guys all heard of this, but you have to appreciate the dollar. You have to understand the dollar. Like the dollar is anything but a printed little piece of paper that can be printed 100 times, billions of times. I mean, that's why we're in debt in America. It's ridiculous. But this is wherever your admirations, wherever they lie, that's where your voice is going to lead. That's who you are. That's who you're going to become. Which shows that you have to always make sure that you're careful about who you admire, what you admire in your life. When a person admires, that's why they put pictures of Rabbanim. You ever been to houses? They put pictures of rabbis on the wall. Why do they do that? Why do they do that? For the kids. Why? Because they watch movies. Even people who watch movies and they listen to it, they put this on the wall. Why? Because this and that. But in the end of the day, admire that. Admire to become a tzaddik. Admire to become someone who worked on himself. Who, even though he was born so angry, he worked on himself to become not angry. Worked on his good traits. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to admire. And once they admire that, once we look up to these type of people, that's who we become. It helps us to grow. Last thing I would like to talk about in this week's parasha is the end of the parasha, which is probably one of the saddest parts in the whole Torah, in the whole Tanakh. I mean, Balak tries his best. 3 times they sacrifice all the korbanot that they could sacrifice. It comes out to the total of 42 korbanot. And nothing works. Not just that it doesn't work, it backfires. That in the last time Bilaam gives a bracha, Am Yisrael, Balak is so sad, so angry, and he has to devise another plan. Can't be with cursing. It's not going to work. What happens? The saddest thing. It says, Am Yisrael vayeshev Yisrael b'shittim. And Israel settled in Shittim, and this is one of the saddest things. Vayachel ha'am liznot el benot Moab, and the people began to commit harlotry or zenut. This is in chapter 25, pasuk Aleph, pasuk 1, on page 874. Am Yisrael starts going down, and they start doing zenut with the daughters of Moab. They lost their kedusha. After they lost the Kedusha, what does it say? Vatikraena la'am lezivchei Elohen. They invited the people to the feasts of their gods. That's what they did. Right after this, Am Yisrael follows, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings a terrible plague. The amount of people that die is 24,000 Jews on the spot, all die. And we also know this, the leader of the tribe of Shimon, Zimri, comes and he brings a woman, the daughter of Midian, of the king of Midian. He brings her Kozbi Batsur. He brings her and he says to Moshe, you married a Canaanite, you married the daughter of Yitro, I'm going to marry this one, and whatever happens. Pinchas comes to the picture, puts him on a stake, whatever happens. It's just a sad event because 24,000 Jews because of this just perished real quick. I mean, Balak wasn't successful. He was successful in one thing. He was like a snake. He bit one part of the body. He literally took it out. I mean, Bilaam just, because of Bilaam and Balak, they destroyed. But what was the plan? The plan was to get the woman of Moabite to come and seduce Am Yisrael, to do their bidding. Let's see. The Midrash tells us how it happened was that they placed in the tents. They used to be, whenever the woman would come and they would seduce them, and once they would bring them into the tent, one man at a time, they would take out the gods, and they said, once the man was already so much into it, they would say, okay, if you want me, bow to this idol. I'm not going to do anything with you till you bow down. This was all in the council of Balak and Bilaam. And what did Am Yisrael do? They bowed down. Those 24,000 people, they bowed down. They got what they got, unfortunately. The Gemara tells us something very important. Am Yisrael never ever believed in Avodah Zarah. Throughout history, even in the first temple, never could they ever believe in Avodah Zarah. They only believed in Avodah Zarah. Why? To permit arayot, to permit their lusts. This is one of the biggest lessons in the Torah and fundamentals. This part, if a person doesn't realize this, he will never, ever come close, not just to the Torah, to Judaism as a whole. Believing in God, says Rav Elchanan Wasserman, who died in the shul, burnt him down with all his students in Nazi Germany. Rav Elchanan Wasserman, Hashem Yikom Damo, said, it's very easy to believe in God. You don't need to be the smartest of men to believe in God. The greatest of scientists at some point in their life said, we believe that there's a God. There has to be. Everything is so planned and purpose. We're not going to go into that right now. But how do you have people like Aristotle that was so wise, so this? He did actually believe in God. And still we hear about all of his exploits and his lusts and everything, and he was such a degrading human being. How do you hear about all of this? How is this possible? He says, because many times, lo taturu, there's a pasuk that we say every day, lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem. Do not be led astray after your heart and after your eyes. Don't be, says the sages, don't be led astray after your heart by letting your eyes going astray. What's the eyes and what's the heart? Says the Gemara. Eyes, zenut. Lev, levavchem, your hearts, heresy. Apikosut, minut, heresy, not believing in God. When a person lets his eyes lust, not just about when it comes to, zenut, also immoral relationships and stuff, even when it comes to money, honor, these things can lead a person to heresy, to not believing in God. Why? Because a person knows that the following thing you're about to do, Hashem is going to say no. That's why you have to not believe in Him in order to do what you want to do. And this we see all the time. What happened in this parasha in the end was that Am Yisrael worshipped Avodah Zarah in order to not have this guilty conscience upon them of doing zenut with the daughters of Moab and Midian. When a person works on his midot and he realizes that his lusts are one thing, his emunah is one thing, and the emunah should conquer the lusts, till he gets this, he's never going to be able to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu completely. Remember what Rabbi Yochanan said about Paro. When Paro was in the dream, he was standing upon the Ye'or, upon the Nile River. Says Rabbi Yochanan in a very statement, Reshaim stand upon their gods, while the tzaddikim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu stands upon them. This is not just a nice saying. This is saying Reshaim dictate to their gods and according to their religion what they can do, while the tzaddikim are dictated by their God, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Look at the Greek gods. I mean, they have a goddess of beauty, a god of this, a god of that, and each one of them has fights with each other. And this is what let the Greek people feel comfortable with killing, with zenut, with doing all these bad things that they did at the time. Because they were standing on top of their God. A Jewish person has to know this, that as long as you don't let HaKadosh Baruch Hu dictate our life, we're just dictating the life of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're just saying, okay, we're gonna move the pieces. You're not moving the pieces. It's such an important lesson to understand. Now, this is why the Targum, there's a certain Targum. You see, on the side, there's always Unkelus. Unkelus, the convert, always has a Aramaic translation. There's one more translation by Yonatan ben Uziel. Yonatan ben Uziel, Yonatan, the son of Uziel, was one of the greatest sages of his time. It says that when he was learning in the Bet Midrash, a bird will fly above and will burn because he was so holy. He was just a holy person. Even today, we know where the grave is, and people go there in order to find a zivug in Israel. Says Yonatan ben Uziel, it says in the Pasuk, when all of this is happening, when Am Yisrael is sinning with the daughters of Moab, it says, Vehine, let me read to you the translation on Pasuk 6. Behold, a man of the children of Israel came and brought a Midianite woman near to his brothers in the sight of Moses and in the sight of the entire assembly of the children of Israel. And they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Says Yonatan ben Uziel, they were weeping and saying Kriyat Shema, Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael? Why were they saying Shema Yisrael? Because Shema Yisrael is saying what? Shema Yisrael is saying Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. When a person strengthens his emunah, he is able to let HaKadosh Baruch Hu dictate himself than him dictating HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were strengthening an emunah so that they may not follow after all their brothers who were going astray. That was what they were doing. They were saying Shema Yisrael. Says the Chida. This is a very good gematria to remember. Chida says Shema Yisrael has how many letters? How many words? 248 words. And how many is Avon? Avon, the word Avon, which means a sin that is done on purpose, not like Chet. Chet means a sin that is done without knowing, by mistake. Avon means on purpose. Avon, if you take each letter and you spell it out, Ain is Ain, Yud, Nun, Vav, 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 Nun is Nun, Vav, Nun, comes out to 248. By the way, I did my own thing. It actually comes out to that. 248. Avon, Kriyat Shema, cleans Avon. Now it sounds like a nice gematria. Oh my God! Because it's the same gematria. No, because there's a whole deep meaning. Shema Yisrael is the one thing that shows strengthening in the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's why we say Shema Yisrael so many times each day. So many times we mention it. After Alenu L'Shaber, before Alenu L'Shaber, this. So many times there's Shema Yisrael, because it's Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Before Yaakov Avinu passed away, what did he say? He brought all of the tribes of Israel to stand right by his deathbed. And he said, do you guys believe in God? Do you guys believe that Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad? And they all screamed out and they said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. This is what our sages tell us. In tradition, that we have a tradition that all the tribes scream this to Yaakov. To tell Yaakov, we believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we're going to let him dictate us. We're not going to let ourselves dictate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's very important to say Kriyat Shema. And to remember 248, for the 248 of your avonot, any avon that we may have done, to try. The Ari HaKadosh actually says this, that even the worst of the avonot, when we say Kriyat Shema, to have in mind the worst of the avonot that you think you're doing, and to have in mind that this will clean them. I will let HaKadosh Baruch Hu be a king upon me and dictate my life according to the Torah, according to what He wants. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will all grow in our spirituality, and success to all of us, and wherever we go. Hazak Ubo.